Right, welcome back. I did tell you that the Minister of Mines and Energy, Energy Minister John Peter Amewu has been explaining to Ghanaians that we would have been paying more if not for interventions that the NPP government has put in place. He actually has been enumerating some of these measures. He says that between March 2017 to 2018, there being the following interventions: removal of excise duty on the 16th of March of 2017, the reduction of the special petroleum tax rate from 17.5% to 15% on 16th of March 2017, reduction of the special petroleum tax rate from 15% to 13% on 16th of February 2018, and conversion of the special petroleum tax from valorim to special tax on 16th of February 2018, a reduction of the price stabilization and recovery levies. So let's listen to him making these explanations in a press conference earlier this week.
On Monday, the price of fuel hit the 5 cedi plus mark, with fuel prices increasing from 4 cedis 94 pesos to 5 cedis 18 pesos for diesel, and 4 cedis 90 pesos to 5 cedis 14 pesos for petrol. Mr. Amewu told journalists Thursday that the New Patriotic Party, since assuming the reins of power 21 months ago, has reduced the special petroleum tax twice. He said Ghanaians would have been paying more if the NPP had not come to power.
These have been very extensive reductions in prices of petroleum products within the period so far that we've been in government. The revenue loss, ladies and gentlemen, to government on the removal of the excise duty and the reductions of the petroleum levy alone between December 2017 and June 2018 amounts to 232 million Ghana cedis. The price we are paying today, if the Mahama-led administration is still in force, you will be paying quite close to between 9 to 10% higher than the current prices that Ghanaians are paying.
Mr. Amewu also noted that some 11 agreements signed under President Mahama are being considered for cancellation.
With these challenges, the government, again under His Excellency, has decided to locate the car power plant to Takoradi and to convert it into gas plant.
Right, so there have been quite a lot of reactions. We want to take the reactions, then we'll get back to the studio. I'll introduce my guests and we'll continue with the discussions.
Very sad, case where fuel is increased and we are not allowed to increase our lorry fares. We pay income tax quarterly. We pay insurance yearly. We pay roadworthy half yearly. We buy tires, we buy lubricants. At the end of the day, what we have out of our business is a token.
We normally go at a loss if we should maintain our fare to be the same. But if there should be increase in fuel prices, then at least there should be an increase in lorry fares. We are being supervised by our leaders. We don't have the authority to do that.
Dear how pa a higher pan say or two more a chepa and sana fair no cromedy behind the atoso.
The worst part is that fuel prices keep going up while transport fares are unchanged. We cannot even pay our bills as drivers.
Right, so let me quickly introduce my guests for this morning. I have to my immediate left Adam Mutawakilo, who is a ranking member of the Mines and Energy Committee of Parliament and also MP for Damango. And next to, on my right-hand side, I have Senior Hossi, who is the CEO of the Chamber of Bulk Oil Distributors. Richard Asante is representing the New Patriotic Party, is also joining us in the studio this morning for a discussion on this. Gentlemen, good morning and thank you very much for your time. It's been an interesting week, and a week in which we've seen fuel prices shoot up, and the minister is telling us that the NPP has put in place a number of interventions, which means that we're paying about 9% to 8% less than we would have paid had the NDC being in power. Senior Hossi, let me start with you. I know you have a lot of steam on this, so let's understand these interventions. I run through those interventions which John Peter Amewu enumerated, but Is that the case, that we actually are paying less?
That's less will always be a relative term. What exactly to what? Will it be to what alternatively would have been an optimal price? Yes. Then if that's the case, you're absolutely paying less. Deregulation has actually forced prices much lower than you would have paid if government was regulating it. Government prices, I think the MP has been on record saying it would have set it at about 5.4, and they are also right. I mean, at current tax rates, that's what it would have been. But the market average, we take top 10 market averages, it's still standing at about 5 cedis, 1 pesos.
And still higher?
5.0, yeah, pardon?
And that's still higher?
That's lower than what government would have recognized as a full price. That's not in relation to the minister's submission. I think I understand what the minister is saying. The minister is arguing that prior to his coming into office, the SPT was, say, 17.5%. They've taken interventions to remove certain taxes. And if you take all that into cognizance, then you would be paying, you're paying much lower than those rates would have. I think that's a political matter. Taxes are...
I like the way you say political matter, but is it not worth going into? I mean, these political matters.
I think that
there's a reason where we are.
There are key things. Our prices are a function of world activity, world prices, our exchange rates, and our tax regime. These are the things that determine where our prices will always stand. The market margins are significantly controlled by competition. That's why you're not paying 5.4 or 5.39 as the NPA would have estimated. If everybody was taking their full margins, you'll be paying something of that sort with the current taxes. So that's not the problem. The problem is what happens on the world market, the taxes, and then the exchange rate. What you've had a year-to-date situation is to see world prices move by 26 and 37%. We do not price our things based on crude. The media always makes that mistake. I try hard to correct it, but I think that it's difficult to teach an old dog new tricks. So I think I'll let you guys be. There are product price benchmarks based on world market references. So I think that the plant market Y itself is one. So you use that benchmark for products. For gas oil and gasoline, it could be different. They could change separately from the way crude will change, but they are very interlinked. They're not perfectly related. So you have that situation changing by 26%. You have issues too with our exchange rate. Between the last window and now, it's not too crazy, you know. But there are concerns. If you take the BOG itself, there's been some change by 0.4% in their rate, and that's different because you're just looking at a window prior to this. In some instances, too, you see probably some 1.64%, but you look at the year-to-date situation, and we price our things based on forward effects. It's about 9% change. 9% too is still within the the inflation situation we have in the country today. But the main problem you have with the recent price is really a heavy jump between the last window and the current window in the world market prices. For gas oil in particular, a 5% change. That's big. And we do not necessarily change our prices every time. If you look at the prices, they've been quite stable between June all the way to the end of, to the mid of August. But the world market prices have been changing. There was a 4.42% prior to entering June. There was 0.65. There have been minor changes, and we don't pass it on. We absorb them. But what you've just realized that adding 5% overnight to all the ones that we've piled in the past 4 windows or past 2 months or 3 months, it had to definitely now reflect at the pump, and that's what really has happened. I know there have been discussions about the SPT, and that's what the minister was referring to. The SPT is definitely lower than it was when it was passed in percentage terms. What over the time has happened is that world market prices increased, but we maintained our 17.5%. There was a public uproar at some point. It changed to 15%. We always told government from the NDC time that making it ad valorem was not too prudent a decision. Get your fixed target. So when there are world market price increases, it will not necessarily increase the burden on the consumer. The consumer knows I'm just paying 46, 50 pesos all through my life. The current government came in the same advice. I have been privileged to be an advisor to the ministry under their time and also under the current government because of my technical role. So I advised them. This time around they took that and they changed it to a specific tax. If you take the SPT today, it's just around 9% of your pump prices if you are looking at our average pump price rates today. But that does not necessarily make it optimal or non-optimal. That's also a matter of political discussion. And you will have to look at that in line with government revenue requirements. I defended the SPT when the MPP was against it the time it was passed. And I'll still defend it today. Looking at it as an economist and looking at the broader scheme of our revenue requirements. But there's politics that goes on. SPT is about 5% of our entire tax revenue today. How are you replacing it if you are taking it out? When you already have a deficit of, what, 2 billion? Almost a 10%
so
deficit.
It's not straightforward.
It's not a straightforward thing. It's easy to talk. And you see, this is a problem I have with the two people before they start talking. The politicians, I think the dishonesty is too much.
For a while.
The dishonesty is too much. I think the MPP was very clear. They realized the needs with government revenue, the needs to the economy, the fiscal situation. Everybody was fighting SPT at the time. As one of the few people, I will tell you what I think. I don't care where it stands. And the NDC is talking about it today, and they also know the same thing. So I don't know. It's like you're taking the public and the broader Ghanaian citizens, some chaskele that they are playing.
Let's hear from Adam Mutawakil. Senor has, put the whole discussion in context.
He is talking of technical. Yeah. We are talking of what came to Parliament. That's right. And that is what we, the minority, are talking about. Very well. Because if you speak about technical, it must be put in a document form.
Absolutely. And come to Parliament.
And a purpose given to it. Absolutely. And brought to Parliament. Sure. So he spoke about the technical. But he spoke about the well prices. We must declare some are internal factors that are influential. And he indicated an exchange rate. Mm-hmm. If you are not able to jail the exchange rate as Dr. Baumia is chasing, looking for it to imprison now, it will translate to well prices. Taxes will
So poor management of the economy is at the heart of all of this.
No, thank you. And that is why we, the minority, are always clear. When the special petroleum tax came to Parliament, the MPP then made it clear that when they come to power, they will scrap it. It is on the hazard. It's very clear. The media captured it.
And it has not been scrapped.
And when it came to Parliament, yes, every budget, you normally give what we call the benchmark price. The government tells the people of Ghana how the price at which they will sell our oil or our crude oil to the world market. And then the quantity they expect to sell. In the course of the year, it could be higher or lower, the actual price. Now, the 2040 came because of the drastic decline in the price of crude oil. While we put in the budget $99 per barrel, the actual price dropped as low as 28. That created a huge deficit. That means that the price at which we wanted to sell our oil, we are selling it far less, such that even the stabilization fund cannot cover up. We must also know that these are tied to projects, clinics, schools, roads, water projects, such that if we are not able to execute the budget, a majority of Ghanaians will be denied social amenities. So the special petroleum tax was brought in. There was a memorandum accompanying it, stating the purpose for which it is brought. Now, it was eventually passed. Now, fast track to 2017. Actually, the benchmark price was higher than the actual price. And I said we knew that, yes, we still need this to be able to fulfill the budget requirement. And that is why in 2017, the minority never made any demand from government to scrap it, even though we knew that they had promised to scrap it. But in 2018 budget, this government came with a benchmark price of $57 per barrel. That means that the budget is budgeted on 57. Now, the price is now about $77 per barrel.
Let me quickly introduce Bobby Bansing, private legal practitioner. Bobby Bansing has joined us in the discussion so that we'll get our viewers and listeners updated on our guest. So Bobby Bansing, thanks for coming. So Honorable.
Now we are selling it at $77 per barrel. And that is a surplus. We are making some surpluses on the sale. Or I will say that whatever we budgeted in our budget, we are getting much more than what we budgeted for. And therefore, the special petroleum tax had no space. We must be careful. Taxes are not just taxes, raise revenue. All taxes have purpose attached to them. That is why we have the boss margin, we have the toll debt recovery levy. It's supposed to settle the debt of toll. So when government decides that even though the purpose has outlived its usefulness and you want to maintain it, come back to Parliament. Let us know the purpose you want to use it for so that we can assess it. We can, as oversight responsibility, do it in line. We'll have the opportunity to debate it on the floor of Parliament. Ghanaians will make input into it. Civil society organizations will have an opportunity to make input in it, and then we all go ahead. But this government is now behaving as if they were not those who said they would scrap it. Two, they now want to justify to us that the tax is very important. This is a government that said, when we come to power, we are moving from taxation to production. And today, they are seriously looking for money through taxation.
And it's been 21 months. Let's put that in context. They've been in power for.
No, they said, they introduced new taxes. Any government that says that we are moving from taxation to production would rather be abandoning new taxes. As we sit, luxury tax, car, vehicle tax is there. High income tax, I'm paying $22,000 extra because of the implementation of that tax.
So your income has
so
dropped.
My income has dropped.
Your earning power.
And now they are
reduced.
saying that they need them because they need to be able to do certain things. So are you now relating to production or you are now back to taxation? We need to put that. So our call is that, yes, you criticize it. We are being lenient. You've come back to power. Situations have changed per what it used to exist because the oil prices are higher and we are making supply. Take it. If you don't want to take it, bring it back to Parliament. Tell us what you'll be using that money for. We don't want a document in Parliament telling us you are supposed to use it for A, meanwhile you are using the money for B. So that is the legal aspect of it. Now the minister, I can realize that over the period, they always want to be comparing to NDC time.
But it's always been the case when
now,
NDC
government, they have shifted now. They are even assuming that if we are in power, that is a bit weird. That is a sign of desperation. So now they are not even comparing to what actually was done, but they are assuming what would have been doing
if you were in power.
President Mama and the NDC would have been doing by now. And that is very unfortunate to imputing into the minds of people when they are not in power. That is simply telling you that you are not able to handle it. And you easily need a comparison to be able to get it when there is no standard for that comparison. I want him to know that If we're in power, the special petroleum tax would have been taken off. And that would have had a more significant impact. The excise tax is 2 pesos per liter, but they will rant it as if they have done so magic. If taking out the special petroleum tax alone, the impact will be more than all what he enumerated. And they must come clear in respect to that. And as minority, we had indicated it. I think that the public need to know much about this. We'll get all the Hansards, we'll get all the memorandum that accompanied it. Then we'll get statistics in respect to 2015, 2016, what the budget estimated we'll get, what we actually got as revenue, and why the need for that special petroleum tax. Then 2018, what the government is actually budgeted for, what they actually got, they are getting now, and whether that special petroleum tax has still a role. Until they come to Parliament and change certain things, we will stick to it. We are governed by laws, and we ensure that you follow the law. And that is what the minority is calling for.
Right. Let me get a reaction from Richard. A lot has been said, and the MPP government is in the middle of it all. Senior Hossein.
I think the two of them should be sitting closer to you.
No. I want the punches to fly in our faces. So, Richard, let's hear your response on some of the key issues that Honorable Mutawakilo has raised.
I think I listened to my brother Senior give the aspect that is peculiar to the industry and the practice in the industry, and also the fast as it is, and explain matters to Honorable Akilu. If it hadn't been the mischievous part that he took, obviously I was expecting him to sort of understand and appreciate those facts as presented this day by my good brother Senior on this matter. You realize that he explained the issues and gave the indication as to what influenced prices and what government has done, and the fact that the prices could have even gone beyond that. And that is what the minister seek to tell Ghanaians, that if it hadn't been the intervention of government and also the certain taxes that had been touched, obviously Ghanaians were expected to pay more. But I listened to my brother Akilu and some of the analysis that he was putting across, and I find it very frustrating. He talks about the fact that there are difficulties and because of prices here and there. There are issues that we need to understand. If it hadn't been for this administration, the sort of hardship, the difficulties that engulf Ghanaians would have been more. And that ought to be drummed home.
But that's exactly the point he's making.
See,
you're making an assumption that it would have been when they are in power.
Obvious. If you allow me,
that's actually weird. He says that that's a sign of desperation.
If you allow me, it will be obvious to you. It is obvious that NDC made it a point to scrap some taxes and some not even taxes, some allowances to the nursing and teacher trainees. It is an obvious and known fact. If these individuals who were schooling at various institutions and training institutes, if they were supposed to depend on their parents for these sort of allowances, obviously their situation would have been worse and their parents would have been worse in that scenario. That's the first point.
But the allowances are not coming.
It's coming, please. If you listen to them, because the NDC continue to talk. See, when you're talking, I sat here and allow you to make your submission. I hope you're getting me. So it will be good for you to allow me to proceed on this. That's the first point I want to make, that the allowances are coming. If the NDC were to be in power, these nursing training allowances would not even conceive of having any allowances because they thought that they would not pay and they are not ready to make payment for that. That's the first aspect. In terms of free education, if you know the amount of money that parents are saving on their walls every semester. No, I'm trying to give you the general.
Allowances.
I'm giving you various aspects.
Can you just contextualize so we can have a better understanding?
If you allow me, you appreciate the point for which I'm developing. We are looking at the well-being of the Ghanaian. The hardship that might come as a result of exchange rate, that might come as a result of increment in fuel prices and whatnot. And I'm letting you know that these are even things that has been done by the government that cost the government in excess of 5.8 billion because government thought it wise to provide some level of relief for Ghanaians. You realize that when we came in, we touched on 14 different taxes. Some were entirely scrapped, others were reduced, including the almighty Kaya levy, where we took it out of the system to give some level of respite to these Kaya people. He will not appreciate it because obviously he was even crying about small taxes that have been imposed on him. This VA tax, he was crying about it. But the same sort of people were telling us to segregate the population when it comes to even free education because he thinks that he could pay. Now you are saying you could pay for your school fees. So contribute through the VA tax and this special tariffs and high-end tax towards your kids' education. These are some of the things that have been done. In terms of the fueling aspect, my brother, we know that as a country, we decided to embrace a different price mechanism where the government do not have much of a say in terms of pricing. That we aside the government taxes that is imposed and also the government's control over the exchange rate. But we've known that within the last couple of months, because of the strength in the US dollar, it has affected major currencies across the world. And this is not peculiar to Ghana. And these are known facts. When you check even the performance of the US dollar against the currency of Argentina, it has depreciated by 50+%. When you look at that of Turkey, 42%. That of South Africa, 19.2%. When you look at India, in excess of 11%. UK, in excess of 4.29%. In Ghana, we are looking at 7% because of the strength that the US dollar has gained. There's another major difficulty that we need to understand. Because of the difficulty with most developing countries, that we have a lot of portfolio investors bringing in their dollars to.
You're actually mixing up the
no,
whole.
No, I'm not mixing. I'm trying to give you.
We are segregating the discussion on the economy, the Standard & Poor's ratings. That
I think it's referring to the FX implications.
The exchange rate implication on the fuel prices. Okay. And I'm letting you know that as we speak now, in terms of the performance of the exchange rate, this government has done better compared to the NDC and what they did over the period. Because we've been able to hold this for a while. And I'm giving you reasons why we have this kind of difficulty at this moment. Because if you have a lot of portfolio investors taking their investment out of this country as a result of the gains the US dollar is making, it is obviously will affect the performance of the city in a way. Because there will be demand for more dollars in the market. Beyond that, as we speak now, we are aware that government has put in a lot of measures to make sure that at least we reduce the supposed or the intended hardship that would have occurred if these measures are not being put in place to take care of the difficulties that Ghanaians would have gone through if government has not come in with some of these strategies to deal with these issues. So for the NDC's continuous noise about the fact that things are getting bad, fuel prices are increasing, it is increasing because, one, the world market prices have gone up. And it has gone up about 5%. When you look at that, it is a major leap. And that will change any economy and its dynamics. And that is one of the reasons why we are seeing what we are seeing. Despite the fact that Ghana have some oil here. The other aspect that we are seeing is that because of these issues, government are putting in other interventions to deal with the so-called hardship that the NDC would want to portray to us. That will make sure that things will not be as difficult as it would have been. And these are happening. We are seeing a lot of programs being rolled out. We are seeing a lot of interventions coming in. We are seeing a lot of activities happening to make sure that at least Ghanaians enjoy and also live in an atmosphere where, indeed, things that would have cost of production to go up, i.e. Interest rates and all that, are being taken care of. Because before we came into power, my brother, you realize that the interest rate was hovering around 27, 28, and even to 30%. Now we have certain banks interest rate around 16, 17, 18%. It gives you an indication that something is being done to make sure that we reduce cost of doing business so that at least the taxi driver can get access to cheaper loans to be able to do business. So other aspects of the economy that we do not have total control over, we will not come in to collapse the economy. And I think that we've done necessarily well compared to what the NDC did. Because from 2012, when President Mahama took over as a president of this republic, we saw the depreciation of the cedi at 17.5%. 2013 came to 14.6%. 2014, 31.3%. 2016, we saw 9.6%. 2017, we saw 4.9 because of the prudent management of the economy. Now we haven't got into the end of the year, and we are seeing something hovering between 6 and 7%. It gives you an indication that the NPP administration, under the leadership of His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, we are better managers of the economy, and these have known fast, and I think we ought to appreciate it.
But he raised an important issue which you didn't touch on, the fact that when you keep comparing and mirroring what is happening with the assumption that if the NDC was in power, it would have been paying more, that's a sign of desperation. I needed you to
see, it becomes important for us to make reference to history because of the analysis that are being made here. Because because of the kind of noise they continue to make on some of these issues. If you say somebody's not performing well, what are the comparisons that you've done? What are you comparing with? So from our point of view, it is very relevant in terms of the public discourse. Because I understand the Ghanaian that what they seek is for them to have their life bettered. But for us, as communicators and also speaking for government, it is very important for us to let the NDC know their track record. And what are they comparing that with? Because we are comparing records. What they said they did during the time that they were in power and what we are doing currently. They are saying that we are not performing. And we are giving them the figures to indicate that, indeed, looking at the performance of this government, it's far better than what they did back when they were in power. And indeed, we are doing better in other aspects of the economy.
But a lot of Ghanaians are complaining.
I mean,
things are not doing too well. People are losing jobs. Some companies are unable to pay salaries on time.
I mean,
some are not paid at all.
Steve, when you talk about people losing their jobs, I know the difficulties that confront the country in the banking sector. And we know this government, before we came in, all these difficulties and mess have been created. But you see, the government took a bolder decision to deal with these issues heads on. Let me make a point on that. Let's imagine the sort of trauma and the sort of difficulties and the challenges this country would have gotten itself into. If I'm not talking about the NDC, if government has sat down aloof and allowed these 7 banks to go under, we are looking at people's lifetime savings. We are looking at companies and their investments in these banks. We are looking at in excess of 10 million Ghanaians being involved in these banks. So ask yourself, in one way or the other, ask yourself, was it better for government to come in this way, where about 1,000 plus or so will lose their jobs, but government will find other alternative means of absorbing them into the system, or to witness what we saw during the NDC era, where DKM, God is love, and its other siblings caused a major havoc in Broke region, where homes were broken, families were destroyed as a result of these difficulties.
Yeah, right. So I'll give you a chance to. I'll give you a chance to talk. But let's
also have a summary.
Yeah, but let me get Bobby Banson's comment briefly. I mean, you came into the discussion.
Yes, and I apologize for coming late.
That's okay. You're here.
I just put some money down. I don't mind some local fuel.
So I mean, we're discussing the fuel price hikes and the minister's assertion that we could have been paying more. If not for interventions that this government put in place. And I'm sure you heard from Mutawakilo, you heard from Richard Mensah.
Well, it's, you know, when I listen to the current leadership try to justify some of the things that has happened, I ordinarily should not have a problem. My problem stems from the fact that when they were in opposition, they made it's the same justification the NDC was making at that time. External factors is not within our control. That was the reason the pricing was deregulated in the first place. And I remember Honorable K.T. Amon, you may correct me if I'm wrong, sternly opposing that process and saying that government should control it, right?
I'm not sure it was the deregulation.
Or what was he?
He did not.
We deregulated in 2015.
Yes. Anyway, now the MPP in government is admitting, if I've not heard anyone, at least I've heard my brother Richard, that the pricing is beyond their control. I think both
exchange rate volatility.
Yes, it's influence
volatility is within their control.
I'm saying that he is saying that the pricing is beyond their control. I have no problem with that. Indeed, it may be majority beyond the control of any ruling government. Maybe 60-70% beyond your control. 30% is within your control because you impose the taxes that form a component of the pricing. If both sides tell Ghanaians that if the fuel is 5 Ghana cedis, know that 70% of the price is outside our reach. 30% is because we've added X tax. We are using X tax for this. We've added B tax. We are using B tax for this. We've added C tax. We are using C tax for this. Every well-meaning Ghanaian will listen to you and say, okay, at least we've been told that this money is being used for this purpose. So let's leave the 70% and let's concentrate on the 30%. I think it will reduce the politicalization of this whole pricing policy. Unfortunately, ever since I understood politics, that is a strong word, ever since I could read and write national events or situations, you would see that fuel pricing has become a political issue. It's become a campaign issue. So if NDC is in power, the MPP will find ways and means of bastardizing them on the cost of the fuel. If MPP is in power, NDC will find ways and means. But both of them now are telling us that most of it is beyond our control. The NDC seem to be in a better situation now because they are saying, okay, we imposed these taxes. It was for this purpose. At the time we imposed them, the benchmark was X, the world market was Y. You said you were going to take that tax out. You have come into power. The benchmark is, per your budget, was $57, I think. The world market is up. I'm not an expert. I'm just talking as a layman.
Yeah.
So it means that technically there should be a windfall for the government.
There is.
So if the tax was because that we were buying more or we're paying more than what it was, tell us why you need the tax. I think if the MPP justifies it, we need the tax. When we're in opposition, we thought we didn't need it. Now we need the tax because we have to sponsor free SHS. We have to pay nurses allowance. We have to do A, B, C, D. It will make a lot of sense to a lot of Ghanaians. My difficulty is that when the MPP communicators are talking, they sound as if they are addressing NDC people. But that is not the case. It is not only NDC people who are complaining about the fuel price. In fact, the last increase, the night I was driving, I felt lazy. I said, oh, let me drive home. The next morning when I'm going to work, I'll buy the fuel. When I woke up at 5 a.m., I saw on social media, Shell has increased their prices. I almost bit my nail. That it was 4 points.
Laziness is not good.
Pardon?
Laziness is
it's not good. I should have bought it. Now I paid about 80 cedis or something more. So I think that is what it should be, how the communication should be. Whether we like it or not, government relies on taxes from petroleum revenue.
So technically we should stop politicizing.
Exactly.
No,
and then concentrate on what the truth is. So that it should not be NDC against MPP. Because when you go to the fuel stations, it is not only MPP. When you say, okay, because you're MPP man, we'll sell it to you for 4.9 cedis. A lot of Ghanaians are asking for reasons. And that is what MPP, I think, should focus on. Instead of saying that and that statement, with all due respect, I think should not have been. I listened that
you think the minister should apologize?
Well, I will not say he should apologize. I will not say he should apologize. But I think that it should have come out. It didn't come out well. That if we
How did it come out?
I listened to him.
Yeah, I know.
For
but
me,
how did it strike you?
Okay, let me
get the sense that he was like, you should be grateful.
Let me give you this scenario.
More.
If you go to woo a lady who was already married or having a boyfriend,
I like the married one.
Who was already married, that is more serious. And then you get her to divorce the husband. Maybe at that time they were living in a 2-bedroom house. You tell her that I'm going to build you a house in Trasacco, 5-bedroom, 2-bedroom boys quarters, and everything. Then she divorces the husband. She comes to you, and then you take her to a 3-bedroom. Maybe that time she was living somewhere I can't mention her name, so that it will not be said that I've said some places are posher than others. And then you move her from 2-bedroom to 3-bedroom. And then you know that she's not comfortable with the 3-bedroom. Then you tell her that if you were with your...
you would have
been in a 2-bedroom. So even though I promised you 5, stay with your 3 because I have increased it, by 1.
But that's fair, right?
Even though technically she's still suffering.
What is going to say to this?
Yes.
He's going to say he took you to a chamber of self-contained. Bottom line, there's too much politics that defeats the honesty around key issues. The dishonesty of these of our Ghanaian politicians is not helping anybody.
But where is the dishonesty?
It is dishonest. One, what did you have when the SPT was coming? MPP busting it left, right, center. Meanwhile, they knew the issues. It's not rocket science. You just need a first degree economics to be able to understand why a need for a thing like that. All right. I was part of the people who engineered the idea of the SPT. All right. And I'll defend it again today. But what do you have? The NDCs come to attack, but they also have the data. What was petroleum revenue in 2015? 1.4 billion. 2016, 900 million cedis. 2017, 1.5 billion. We are in 2018 half year. The Bank of Ghana is reporting half year we raised $463 million. Out of this, 215 has to go to our Stabilization and Heritage Fund. It is not available for budgetary consumption. So all you have is just on 200. Means you're going to get around this. How much are we raising within this half year? Close to $1 billion in SPT revenue. Do they match? There's nothing compensating itself anywhere. And you look at your you look at the general revenue shortfall. We have a 2 billion deficit as we speak. You have a 2 billion deficit. If it was them, they won't do anything about it.
But
you see,
how can you make such assumptions?
No, it's not rocket science.
It's the truth.
You are in a hole. You can't dig it further if you want to come out. It's common sense. You see, but the reason why I think that Honorable has a legitimate reason to hold that position is because people like him had that same reason some 2 years or 3 years ago. And it doesn't take this country anywhere.
Exactly.
For God's sake, you should realize that we are the people paying you guys to sit here. Show us some respect. Be honest about issues of the economy. Honest about issues of petroleum. What you can't do, you can't do. These are the facts. A, B, C, D. Put it there, boom. And let everybody understand the reason behind it. But when somebody is taking their position, then you deliberately come and attack it because you realize that this is an opportunity for me to get at it and come and play with people's minds. All for votes. Ghana is bigger than NDC and MPP. And you guys must realize that. There are real lives related to some of these issues. So when we are deliberating on it, we are taking policy views on it, the minimum we need is a certain significant level of honesty. I'm not saying there will be no politics. There may be different ways of still doing the same thing. And people may have different styles to it. But be honest about the analysis. It was wrong for the MPP to have tried to talk about the SPT left right. They had no case. Today, the NDC should have no case.
We have a case.
Where's the case? Look at it as an economy.
Come and change the purpose.
That is fine, but at the end of the day, Honorable, at the end of the day, I agree with you.
Disregard the law.
So talk about the process. You see, that was
we
not
have
the law.
made
That issue is not the law. That is the reason for which the tax was passed.
You come back to Parliament and change it.
Yes. You can come back to Parliament.
So you don't just think that because you need revenue, you need revenue.
Be honest about the situation. We have a revenue shortfall. The fact that we're actually having an increase in petroleum prices doesn't mean that we have access to that increase. You don't. So what is your real situation as a country? You're running a deficit. So it is not a viable proposition to want to consider a removal of the SPT. These are the realities of the time.
You see, listening to you, I understand.
Let me get Honorable Mutawaki.
First of all, talk the exchange
I'll come to you.
And the international well price. You see, we the minority are very, very definite. It's not all taxes you have a shortfall, every tax be tax. Yeah. Do you get my point? Yeah. It's just not reason. There is a reason for every tax.
Absolutely.
So if you think that you have a shortfall and you need this one, which purpose which has outlived its useful in terms of the purpose, what prevents the government from coming to Parliament? We had a revenue fall. We want to change the purpose of the special petroleum tax.
That's fine.
That is okay. We said that come, we'll debate it. You don't want to come, and then you go around telling people you have a revenue shortfall. So can you take told the recovery lady like they did to use it for communication? That is misapplication of Now let me come to the exchange rate. Let me come to the exchange rate.
All of you are guilty.
My brother, first and foremost, talked about the exchange rate and compared to NDC 2013-2015. In 2013 to 2015, we all know we had serious power challenges. Our industries were in distress.
Oh, God.
And therefore, our export will not match import. As we speak today, they are talking of a lot of things. The exchange rate is running. And he's comparing it to Argentina. If you monitored Argentina of late, they are going for World Bank bailout. If you monitor the news, because the economy is not doing well. Now he relates to the exchange rate in Ghana to that of Argentina and Turkey. And I just want to know that Argentina, because the economy is not doing well, and they have to go for World Bank bailout, and that is affecting the exchange rate. Turkey, let me take it. Turkey. You know, they have kept a bishop from America under house arrest. And America has imposed sanctions on Turkey that is affecting the currency. So you must know. So in Ghana, because the economic fundamentals are weak, the economic fundamentals are weak, the exchange rate is exposing them. And therefore,
taking a break. I need you to respond briefly.
You must quote the source of that.
Source, Dr. Beomia.
You must give source.
It's unfortunate that Honorable Akilu is embarking on the mischievous trend that is always known for.
You're always mischievous.
My brother,
but I think he's makes your legitimate.
There are points. He talked about the fact that NPP is misapplying funds that are supposed to be used for other things, and they use it for communication. This is neither here nor there. It's not true. What we know is from the PIAC report that funds that were dedicated to build hospitals, schools, and all those things, the monies has been expended and the projects do not exist, and they all happened during President Mahama era. And these are known facts and is known to the public. The second aspect that I want to say is that it is not the interest of the NPP to come on platforms and banter the NDC. What we are doing is to offer explanation to policies and programs of government. We do respect the ordinary people a lot. We appreciate them. That is why we always do things respectfully to explain matters to them. It only becomes relevant occasionally to sort of let the NDC know that they do not know what they are talking about, looking at what their performance in power. That is why occasionally we make reference to those aspects.
You're not benchmarking the second aspect is that to the
of course, no, because NPP is far better than NDC in every essence of the word.
The way you guys refer to it, you are competing over mediocrity.
The second aspect is
it's a competition over mediocrity. That's what it is.
The comparison is about
instead of who has done this, I won't let him land.
But really have to take a break.
I'm paying 35% 9 days, so my word, I'm wild.
Mr. God, you need to pay that. You are big man.
Because me, you have to go to movie pick more.
Richard, land that, so we'll take a break.
Steve, you know what? Looking at the performance of the economy, the performance of the city, and the pricing across board, looking at inflation over the period, I think that this government has done excellently well. We can do better. We know that we have 4-year mandate. So this impression that they are being created as if we are near to the end of our tenure and we have to fulfill everything that we said. I think those things we need to understand that we haven't gotten there. We continue to make inroads, make improvement. I mean, you was talking about all these things. What you've forgotten about is that government came in and said looking at the economy and the pricing that is going on, I'm going to make sure that I reduce power tariffs for people. Where we saw about 17% reduction for residential consumers, about 30% for non-residential consumers. We saw a 20% reduction for industries and 10% for the mines. It has never happened in our history that a government comes in and reduces power tariffs to such margins. It has never happened in our history that a government comes in and reduces or scrap completely about 14 different taxes. It has never happened. We know that there has been introduction of one or two things to deal with literally sits on the paychecks or the pockets of the rich. For instance, my brother Senor, I'm not sure Senor will feel it when he's supposed to make payments of, say, 1,000 cedis, 2,000 cedis towards his V8 vehicle. He doesn't have a problem with that. I hope you're getting me.
Taxation has been
aspect of because V8 tax is meant to tax the rich to support the poor.
I don't have a problem paying
the other aspect of the 35%, the 35% is on the threshold above 10,000. And if you are, by the grace of God, you are blessed to be making that amount, that number of individuals within the population, you are looking around 30,000.
You don't know the number of mouths that I have to feed.
And that 35% goes into supporting other aspects of the economy. For instance, remember then when the introduction of the free agents came in, we saw the NDC and certain individuals who said that they have enough money, they have resources at their disposal, and they could afford their war school fees. So government should not pay for their war school fees. They should give the opportunity. Now the opportunity is being given to you in another format. Make contribution to government through this not only I'm talking about the luxury taxes and the VAT tax. So
your mantra was from taxation to production.
But that's exactly what is happening. We are producing.
The exchange rate situation. The argument that is always made remotely, again, has to do with the structure of our economy.
Yeah.
Your exchange rate and your stability is a strong function of your current account and your capital account. Your capital account has to do with all these investor funds that are coming in left, right, center. If your current account, and you are building an export-oriented economy, proper production, you can insulate yourself against any sudden changes within your capital account, because you won't be much dependent on it. But we've still not changed the structure of our economy. I don't think that over 2 years or 21 months, NPU will overnight change that. I equally don't see it happening, I mean, over the time of the previous government, because nobody was really focused. We have a myopic approach to our issues as a country. Everybody's thinking about the next election, not the country.
This is still Newday, Saturday edition. We're live on radio, straight from 92.7, streaming on Facebook and on 3news.com. Senor, I know that you'll be leaving. Senor will be leaving pretty shortly. So I'd like you to make a quick comment on our next discussion. But Senor will stay with us for a while. This is Newday Saturday. You can join us via WhatsApp 0500 60 70 70. If you're active on Facebook, post your comments on our Facebook post. We should be right back. Right, welcome back to Newday Saturday edition, and we've had a very heated discussion on the issue of fuel prices. But a petition this week was brought before the Special Prosecutor Martin Amido against former President John Dramani Mahama and his then Chief of Staff Julius Deborah. The petitioners, who are part of a group known as the Center for National Affairs, won the two investigated over an alleged transfer of over 40 million Ghana cedis from the Bulk Oil Storage and Transportation Limited BOST to the presidency between August of 2015 and early January of 2017. The executive director of the center, Samuel Odamilate, alleges impropriety on the part of these two gentlemen, the former president and his chief of staff. Hence, their demand for the probe. They claim that there was an account, recipient's account was chief of staff's account at the GCB Bank, which was credited with some 40.5 million Ghana cedis. We're also hearing reports that Martin Amido declined to launch a probe into that, but I don't have sufficient evidence of the reasons for that. So let me start with you, Senor. This alleged transfer from BOST, is it a big deal? Is it something that we should take to the Special Prosecutor and seek to probe?
I think it's something Yoko is already looking into, and that's why the special prosecutor indicated it would be waste of public funds to have a parallel inquiry. But I don't know whether Yoko is really committed to it.
But your view is that indeed we need to get to the bottom of this.
Oh, absolutely. I got a bit more alarmed recently, but it's not the first time it's come up. But it was the first time I was looking at it. You know, it's come up before, but you know, when it comes and there's a party, there's a change in government, you expect all kind of things to fly around, so I wasn't too keen on it. And it also came at a time that the moving Pina issue came up. Then contaminated food matter came up. So it seemed to me as though it was some diversionary tactic. So I didn't give it attention. But I looked at it this time around and I realized, hey, this is very irregular. One, the excuse for the transfers is that there are products for a fee called product securities, which is supposed to be contributed by BDCs for sale. Supplies made by God. One, God doesn't supply BDCs.
Yes, it's true.
And then we don't have product securities as an approved charge.
Yeah.
Every cost charge in the industry has to be approved by the regulator, unless it's something that's deregulated. You can't introduce a new thing. And this is a state institution, so to be the first person to do the right thing is supposed to be. So how comes that we don't know? So I make a few calls here and there. Nobody really is aware. But it was charged. I think in the beginning, when they started trading, it was, but not necessarily the 5 pesos that I read Bawa. That's from what I see, because I have a few invoices. But it changed. This is to what Go Energy, not to Go. Go Energy is a BDC. So you see a security charge. And this is what? It's not even up to a peso. So 0.0002840 CD. So it's even not even up to 0.02. But 0.02 of a peso, very, very small. So I don't see how that too would have been. But I think they also claimed that they stopped charging that very early. So they will send you an invoice that is a normal invoice. So if it's 160, it's 160. But internally, seems like boss was reallocating some of the funds. So it means it's revenue for boss from their trading activities. That revenue is supposed to go primarily to fund the trade, not necessarily for it to move elsewhere. The board hasn't got a capacity to try and be funding the presidency. If that is the case, then it should be reflected in the budget, as we should expect, because the presidency has a budget. Yeah. And the chief of staff is part of the office of the presidency. I think there's an act that governs their activity. So if there's an account that's how it is funded is supposed to be defined by the budget, and the Ministry of Finance will have a hand in it. It can't come from an agency and from their trading proceeds. The biggest problem you have with it is that you are claiming you are allocating proceeds from your trade to this account for the payment of that. We see in all this is the sad thing. We've not heard from Iwadako. And Iwadako is reported to be missing in this country. He's not been around ever since there was a change in government. That's what's reported. We don't know. We've not heard him offer interviews to explain. We've not heard the former chief of staff, a very good friend of mine, is somebody I have a lot of respect for, Julius Debra. So, and I think that he can speak. He should be able to speak to the matter. So we all have a bit more clarity. But for us, for that money to move, then you check from Goy, who, according to Bauer's release, is supposed to be the one that the money is supposed to be used to pay. One, chief of staff hasn't got oversight responsibilities over God. He hasn't got oversight responsibilities directly over the military. There's the Ministry of Defense, and this budget is managed that way. You don't pay military from chief of staff if military is owing. It has to go through the give-me system. There's a proper way of getting these things done. So I'm just saying these are red flags that come. God is indicating all they have received is about 3.2 million. From the interactions some of us have had, what exactly is going on here? Because we want to know if we've been wrongly charged, we should go back for our money from bust. Maybe we didn't know because it's to be an illegal charge. And it's only 3.2 that you claim they have received. So why did that money go there? And what was it used for? These are questions that should be asked.
Last thing, this is a trade. You are buying and you are selling. So if you are allocating a part of revenue for something, that means they should be allocating your profits. You can't be allocating your cost. Because if I buy from, yeah, I'm just saying, if I buy from Honorable Mutawakilu at 10 cedis, and I sell to this man at 1 cedi, as for the 10 cedi, it's not available because I'm supposed to pay you back, right? So if anything, I can play with the 1 cedi. It's my profit. Even if you do this kind of thing, that's what you should talk about. But here's a bust that is in a trade and ends up with a debt of about 260, but I think that there's a stock and then receivables things. It nets up to about $160 million. That's why GMPC had to cough up $100 million
in 2017
to bail it. So this trade, and we were always saying that Boss was trading at a loss. How did you do your trade that eventually you have a loss? Yes, still you are finding space to allocate
to ship money
revenue.
Around.
I mean, there's a lot. I don't know. I mean, maybe you guys have better information, but there's a legitimate reason to be concerned and for this to be looked into, and maybe explanations given, so we understand that things have been done legally, and things have also been appropriated. I mean, legitimately.
Right. Let me hear from you on this.
It's. I also follow the news. It's a very interesting development. Like he said, I was hoping that by this time we would have had a statement from the boss, MD, during whose tenure these things happened, or the chief of staff. At least we know he's around during whose tenure these things happen, or even Goyle. The parties that have been mentioned, they would have issued a statement to either deny, admit, or explain what the position is. So far, nothing of that sort has happened. And so it leaves us with no option than to go by what is there. That there's evidence that these monies were charged, as Mr. Hosi has proven. There's evidence that these monies were transferred to an account at the presidency. I mean, as a lawyer, they have discharged a certain burden on them.
Yes.
If once there's proof that the money was indeed charged, there's proof that the money was indeed transferred to an account at the presidency, then the burden lies on the presidency, or Goyle, as it were, which has been mentioned, to say whether, yes, we received the money, but it was used for A, B, C, D. If the reasons outlined are found to be justifiable, then we'll all go to sleep. But if it's found out that the money was misappropriated or was not used for whatever a legitimate purpose, then we'll all say, hey, this is monies that the BDCs, they didn't pay this money from their pocket.
We didn't even know we are paying. So there's nobody who knows.
What I meant to say is that the cost
fee itself is an illegitimate fee.
What I meant is that the cost component, they ended up transferring it to the end. Steve, what I ended up, or what I wanted to say.
I'll show you invoices of BDCs who they also had that. But even Goyle, they stopped billing them. They stopped billing them in the early part of 2016 or even end of 2015. They stopped trying to state it because they realized it was illegal. Because you can't charge this without, so they still charge you a bulk fee.
But you don't know the component.
Nobody, because there's no other component apart from the cost plus your profit in that component. You can't have anything else. And maybe loading and then rack fees. Those were the things. The reallocation of revenue is at the back end. And even if I look at what is here, where somebody sells 1 million liters, the only security charge is 284 cedis. How many millions of liters were sold in by Boss? And how will you be able to get 40 million?
Yeah, that was what I was coming to.
Now,
we need to get to the bottom of this. I think this is a matter that if IOCO is investigating, we should all be interested, because these are funds
but let me tell you
that belong to the public.
This one,
Senor,
let them come later. I don't even think IOCO is really committed to investigating this matter.
Why do you say so?
How long have we been having this conversation? When did this thing come out? Ask him.
Last year,
moving Pina.
When we raised the issue of the 5 million contaminated fuel,
anytime you see nice cooperation over dodgy things by our two friends, All of them they inside.
Oh, no, I think.
Then if that is it, it doesn't take.
There's no
rocket
cooperation
science.
on
this.
You have not engaged any of the BDCs over
to investigate this matter.
Yoko has invited me. When Yoko came to office, they actually thought my office was even a public office in some sense. I've been investigated before. This matter, they have my number. Almost everybody there knows how to contact me. Nobody has even asked, BDCs, have you
paid this money?
Well, I BDCs. Nothing. Nobody has asked. And the matter is quiet until one matter comes up. Then
it rears its ugly head again.
So where is the commitment to really deal with the matter?
For the special prosecutor to have declined the request, it means that there must have been something going on. We just hope that
he declined it on the grounds that Yoko was.
Yes, that is what I'm saying. That he must have been convinced that Yoko was actually investigating.
Richard, you want to respond to Senor or?
No. I want to deal with the issues and also touch on some few things that my brother Senor spoke about. These are the facts.
The transfer of the money into the accounts of
that 4 days before the NDC left power, that is 4 days before 7th of January 2017, an amount of 40 million Ghana cedis was transferred into the chief of staff
personal account.
3 million.
4 million Ghana cedis 4 days before the NDC entered power.
Not 40 million.
Not 40. 40 million.
40
no.
Million.
No.
40 million was transferred.
40 million was transferred
on the 3rd of January.
Yeah, onto the
No, I don't
in total. That is in total. But they were being transferred.
You see the missing.
There's a problem.
This is all they
all of you to have your take.
So we are saying that we are paying 35% 90, so our mouth is going to be high.
So
the woman entertain go to the matter.
So that is one major difficulty. The other issue that we need to understand is that I know the interest of Senor wanting to know whether indeed they were illegally taxed. Other people's interest would equally be, and from this group, the Center for National Affairs, their interest is wanting to know how the monies were applied, whether it was legitimately applied, or certain individuals just chopped the money. Because we know that during President Mahama's era, there were major difficulties in terms of how resources of the states were applied. And some of us thought that corruption was glorified and worshipped during this era. That instead of dealing with it hands-on, we do not see that. Now, what is coming out, and all of us know the entities, the way they operate. If these issues are not facts, if indeed they have a counter, from all this work, you would have seen releases, people speaking across board and wanting to offer explanation to this matter. It tells you that indeed, this is not only something that looks like a duck. It's not something that only smells like a duck. It's not something that only smells like a duck, but it's indeed a duck. And this a classified aspect of corruption that we used to talk about. Corruption at its peak. That monies transferred to, and actions, and we saw a lot of these things happening around the time that they were leaving power. That's why you saw that people losing elections, then signing off bauxite reserves to family members, giving this awarding contracts, a cocoa board, all manner of things. This has been the system that we witness.
Confuse the issues.
And the issues are that it's a major difficulty. And no, Senor, if we find it very difficult to appreciate the fact that this money, some individuals took it.
You're making the assumption that there was corruption, but it's yet to be established.
Of course, Richard, you are in government. My concern right now is the fact that I'm paying you taxes.
The issues are being
deal with these issues. Where are we on them?
The issues are being investigated. Iyoko is working on these issues. Individuals have been invited. They are not speaking. If they have counter explanations, let them all fight. What we know is that the President Mahama and the Chief of Staff have a lot of questions to answer as to how come monies belonging to the state finds itself in Chief of Staff's account, which this same cannot be accounted.
Richard, prosecute them.
And you're saying that they are being investigated and the prosecutions will happen. You know it. MPP do not talk about matters like this and let it hang.
Show us one
Matters, you know, I'll show you what?
One prosecution.
Oh, I mean, you know, opinion issues ongoing at the courts. There are several
over
issues.
85,000 cities or something.
No, not the quantum. Not the quantum. But about the fact that
40 million matter is here. You're talking about
85,000. How are you getting me?
Charlie, do the job. Do the job. The English is too much. Charlie, 35% today, your mouth for hard. When you pay 35, your mouth is as hard.
Wrap up on your point, please.
It's my brother in French, I know. He said, Steve, I think this has been the practice during the NDC's era. And when you go to the accounts of most state institutions, we are seeing a lot of inconsistencies where monies cannot be accounted for. We are seeing major difficulties. Because the point is that we know that at every given time, when monies of this nature are chopped by the politician, it is denying the ordinary persons in my village access to good school, hospitals, good roads, and all that. Because monies that could have gone into these areas have been put in their pocket. Remember earlier when I mentioned about the PIAC report, where in excess of $100 million of oil proceeds could not be accounted for because the NDC regime took the money, chopped the money, indicated that they've done this project. The PIAC went around and they realized that none of these projects existed.
So what have you done about it?
And these individuals, they have been investigated and they'll be prosecuted. So this aspect about what is being done, I'm telling you that government is working, and you look at the posture of this administration, that beyond the known state institutions that have been mandated by law to work on these matters, we've equally created another constitutional creator, that is the special prosecutor, to also help.
Are you funding the man? They are not being funding the man.
No, please. Anybody who tells you that it's not being funded now, whatever that ought to be done is being done to provide. Is it working at the special prosecutor?
He said he goes there. Honorable, you wanted to say something.
Yes, first of all,
in relation to that.
No, yeah, I just want to say that I thought my brother would have been talking about facts.
But
because they are in government.
Yes.
You understand my point?
He's speaking about facts that
he's speculating. Speculating. In fact,
so what are
first of all, let me
give us the facts.
In 2000,
you put the money to
wait, I want to show you the cheap politics these people do, and I am just shocked. In 2017, we raised the issue of 5 million.
Please, we are not talking about 5 million. Fuel. We are talking about 40 million.
When it was raging on,
where it was being managed by
Mr. Mahama and the
venture staff. That's what we are talking about.
So they brought in this $40 million.
They are documentary tools to all these things.
That is the first issue. It was referred to Yoko. Yoko started investigation. Once Yoko started investigation, the best thing is that the chief of staff need not respond publicly.
Has he been invited by Yoko?
We are waiting. At the end of the day, the CEO need not respond publicly.
You didn't answer
because a government agency is investigating it. So you shouldn't go to the public ranting. 2.
So that's the reason why.
No, I'm surprised that they have brought it back, even they themselves, not knowing that it was being investigated by Yoko. Now the issue of the $3 million to Springfield.
But it was a civil society.
And the investigation
it was a civil society group which.
I said they. I didn't say MPP also. They didn't know. Some civil society took it to Yoko, and the media published it. So all other things being equal, they should have known. Then the issue of the $3 million paid to Springfield, and the issue of my brother Senor Hosse's report in respect to the contaminated fuel, that it has vanished. And as we speak today, we don't know where it ended. Is it in our cars? And the minority, we are still coming to that because we know we raised this red flag a long time. The minister set up a committee.
The issue is
up to now, the committee hasn't submitted its report, and the contaminated fuel vanished.
These are the issues.
When this thing started raging on, they needed a diversion, and they brought it back.
So you think that the 40 million transfer was a diversion? Or
they just brought it back again.
Account has been provided an indication that
they
money
brought
was
it
paid
back
into
again.
an account?
I'm saying that they brought it back again. They need not bring it back.
Why?
Because that is why it was thrown out by the special prosecutor. They should have known that it has been investigated. They should have been asking for Yoko to speed up the investigation and let us know the true nature of the matter. Now, the substance. This is not a private account. It is a public account. NPP is in government. There are records to show. So why is he ranting?
Records to show how the
money was transferred.
So it wasn't like it was paid into somebody's account.
No, it is not a private account. It was sold to Bank of Ghana accounts. So disbursement and whatever it is should be something that should be available. I'm okay. So my brother's ranting, I don't see the reason why. Now, we have this program that was being run, Strategic Reserve Petroleum Program by BOST. They provide fuel to the security. BDCU used to provide the fuel to the security agencies, and they don't pay you. And that means huge debt. We'll pay interest on it. So government has to find a way of providing fuel to the security. Earlier on, BOST started supplying, but BOST wasn't paid, and BOST was not an OMC, so it's not supposed to engage in that. So GOEL and Go Energy, GOEL, which is an OMC, Go Energy came in, and there was this negotiation to have about 5 pesos on every liter, so that could be used for the payment of the security fuel. So it is a public account. So it is not like it is money belonging to BOST. BOST was collecting the money on behalf of the payment of the security.
From who?
From Go Oil.
How?
In the build-up.
So how?
That one, Yoko to investigate.
No, please. Honorable, you are a very fine lawmaker.
But he hasn't.
He
hasn't landed.
Let me land.
What he says is not true. My only advice to you, personal advice, because you are ranking, be careful. Don't just take something somebody just sent to you and start reading it out.
It's not somebody.
The strategic reserve program has nothing to do with supplies to securities. Security stocks in this country has nothing to do with supply to security services. It's about the availability of stocks in our country in times of challenges. That's why we call them security stocks. So please,
I'm saying that
and the program again was not a program. That program was definitely not a program. It was a trading activity by BOST. But you're right. They couched it under that. You should remember, I was also an advisor to the ministry.
You have said it.
I'm saying it's not the case that you have Go Energy and GOEL alone being there.
I'm not saying being there.
Yeah.
You didn't get me. I'm talking of the supply of fuel to the security. I'm not talking of the program, those agencies under the program.
Yeah.
So you have to be very clear.
But you start by raising the program.
BOST supply the fuel to Go Energy to provide to the security. Are you getting my point?
No.
BOST engage in trading. So BOST has finished products. BOST used to supply directly to the security agencies. It became clear that it is not an OMC. So therefore, we need an OMC to come in to provide it. BOST supplies to the OMC, which is which is GOEL, and the BDC, which is Go Energy, to provide to the security.
I'm afraid we have to take a break, and then when we get back,
it's good to take a break so that I can have a proper conversation.
This is New Day, Saturday edition. You can join us via WhatsApp 0500 60 70 70. Let's hear your thoughts on the discussions we're having so far. We'll be right back.
Don't commit yourself on this principle. I'm just telling.
This is still New Day, Saturday edition. Remember, you can join us via WhatsApp 0500 60 70 70. If you're active on our Facebook pages, you can post your comments there. We'll share it with the rest of the world. Let's wrap up very quickly on this 40 million transfer of money from BOC oil storage transfer BOST to the presidency between
to the chief of staff account.
Chief of staff's account
it's a
between
public
2015 to January
what kind of
2017.
account?
So let's wrap up.
Quickly.
Yeah.
So as I indicated earlier, this is a public account. They've made it like a personal account.
It wasn't his personal account?
No, it's a public account.
Bank of Ghana account.
It's Bank of Ghana accounts. This is a government that is in power. It shouldn't be ranting more. They have work to do. Go and look at the accounts. If it is used appropriately, let us know. If it is anything, let us know. But he made mention, PIAC report is different from budget allocations. You have to. So if we budgeted that, we'll carry out
so you're suggesting
project
that
A, B,
you're
C.
suggesting that reference to the PIAC account is muddying the discussion.
No, he always used the PIAC, that $100 million. If we,
the money
that is why
expended,
that is
and the
why
progress are
PIAC
non-existent.
is not the Auditor General. You can put in your budget, I'll carry project A, B, C. If you don't get the revenue to execute it, PIAC will go and assess. But they must do vis-a-vis whether money had been released and paid.
But I'm telling you, 100 million.
It is
plus,
not true.
It's true. You guys
Dr. Mantiel himself indicated that had not contacted the finance ministry as to how whether money had been released or
The
not.
monies have
They
been
do
spent.
their normal routine audit that you put this in your budget. Have you executed or not?
No. That's not true. That's not
And
right.
Auditor General
No, that's not true.
Mr. Host,
is
we
the
are not
one
discussing
who
PIAC
please,
Can we wrap up?
All in all,
they keep diverting
this
the
government is in power.
Yes.
They should stop making noise and work.
So this 40 million transfer is a diversionary tax.
It's a diversionary tax.
As far as Bobby Banson.
Well, I am happy that it has come out now that the money is not money sitting or what that was transferred into somebody's account 3 days before election, as if the person
No, after the election, after they lost.
Sorry, 3 days before handover,
yeah.
change of government, as if they put
And the money
their
was
hand.
chopped within that period, the same day.
No, we don't have evidence that any money
gone.
was chopped.
The money is
It's
gone.
now been confirmed that
was
it's a public
transferred
account,
over time.
Bank of Ghana. If the money, in fact, had been misappropriated,
then the
I
government
believe that
has
the
a right
investigations should go on. The government is in power. They have some level of influence on the investigative machinery. We should all know, because it is public funds, if indeed the money has been misappropriated, so that we know if Mr. Deborah is guilty, whoever is guilty, we should know, instead of throwing it in and out periodically. And that is what Senor said, that it seems to come up only when there's some heat about the operations of
NDC
yes.
and MPP.
So once this matter is there,
bandwagon.
we should make sure we finalize, we conclude on it. So we don't wait till next year. Then when there's a discussion on contaminated for all of a sudden it comes up again.
No, no, that's not fact.
Deal with the
That's
matter.
not fact.
I'm paying 85%.
I'm afraid
Go
that
investigate
we'll
the
have
matter.
to-
society
we'll have to move on
organization
the discussion.
has sent a
One
petition.
line. I have to
That is
move
why
on
we are
one
discussing this issue. And the special prosecutor is making reference to the fact that he's contacted the IOCO, and these same issues are before the IOCO and they are investigating. So that is why he's not
I'm
going to
saying Yoko
investigate
hasn't
that.
shown adequate commitment to deal with this matter, because as it stands now, there's enough information in town that there are efforts to suppress the issue. That's why it is quiet until there's a problem. Then when boss is struggling
if
over
there's
something,
it
then
is
you
not
tell
coming
them,
from a
You
government
said efforts
putting
to
in
suppress the
a
issue. Let's know about
Deal
those
with it.
efforts. These are not in the public space. The efforts to suppress which.
No, nothing is to suppress it. Of course, we all know those are things you hear from the back.
Right.
But why over a year? You keep talking about this thing. Keep talking. Why? Only when there's a problem you show it. So if you want to deal with it, deal with it.
Who's showing it?
The transaction is irregular, very irregular. No two ways about that. But one thing about boss. Before we move on to the next step. Look, boss has been a vehicle for political, economic rent seeking over the years. Abused by the NDC, abused by the MPP. And it continues to date.
That's a bit harsh.
It's not being harsh. No.
Are you saying that?
Ask them here. They all have friends. From transportation, all the issues you hear. Look at the trading losses that they are always making. They are only making trading losses every time. 160 million somebody should pay. Today, we have about $30 million in receivables that the boss is looking for. They can't even find the customer. The customers don't seem to exist. You have transporters. When it's NDC time, then they give it to their own people. Their people now have to subcontract it to the real transporters. When it's MPP time, the same thing happens. So if you are a transporter and somebody tax you MPP, the moment your government in quote is out, you don't have a job. In fact, you don't even have a truck. Then somebody has only a bicycle. He hasn't even got a truck. He will come and see you, use your trucks to go for a contract, and then come and take a haircut, a commission over it. So it is just some vehicle for just moving money. These things must be dealt with, and their institution should be made to operate professionally. It should stop. You people should stop this thing. We are tired though.
Right, let's move on the discussion. I told you could join us via WhatsApp 0560 70 70 or post your comments on our Facebook wall. Now, this week, Ghana's credit rating has been raised from B- to B category by the international ratings agency Standard & Poor's. According to Standard & Poor's, it raised Ghana's rating following what it calls improved monetary policy effectiveness and stable economic outlook. Ghana's improving banking sector stability, I'm quoting from that report, and lower inflation supports our view that the effectiveness and transmission mechanism of monetary policy have improved, and we are therefore raising our long-term ratings on Ghana to B from B-. We're affirming the short-term foreign and local currency credit ratings at B. Let's take a break quickly. I will hear we're having some technical challenges and you're not hearing us. So we'll be right back. Please stay with us.
And the mother.
So we were discussing the Standard & Poor's rating of Ghana from B- to B, and they say that the outlook is stable, and it released this report on September 14. But this comes on the back of a struggling local currency against the dollar, which the minority in parliament says is an indication of a poor economic fundamental, with minority spokesperson Kesa Tufo asking Vice President Bawumia to apologize to Ghanaians for the MPP's inability to revive the economy. But the Vice President, Bawumia, still insists, he maintains that the economy has been doing well and is blaming the city's depreciation on the strength of the dollar. I remember that some of the issues that we discussed came up, Richard. So let me start with you, Honorable Mutawakilo. The economic fundamentals, according to Standard & Poor's, are stable. We've been upgraded from B- to B. That is good news. But the minority still insists that the economy is doing bad, whilst the indications from ratings agency shows otherwise. So can we get a better clarity on...
I want to show the rating vis-a-vis what is happening. And the rating of Standard & Poor's and Moody's has not been today. Ghana has been rated over the years, and they've always indicated we are on a stable. And the minority then always tell that whatever they have done was inaccurate. And now they are empowered, they are embracing it, and I'm surprised. Let me read 3rd October 2016, 2 months to elections.
History.
What President Nana Akufo-Addo, now a candidate.
History.
This City News, City FM. Google, you will get it. Moody's rating of Ghana's economy inaccurate. Nana Addo. And if you permit me, let me just read the first 2 paragraphs. The flag bearer of the new patriotic party, Nana Akufo-Addo, has described as inaccurate International Credit Rating Agency Moody's recent revision of Ghana's long-term bond rating from negative to stable. Moody's, in its recent economic report of Ghana, defined Ghana's economy.
That was the same rating now.
Affirming the rating of B3. And they disputed, that's the same. That is 2 months to elections. After 2 months to elections up to now, it's still stable. And you want to tell us the economy is moving?
No, this
is October 2016. We had indicated that our economy, we have B3. And we are on the right track.
Stable outlook.
Yes, stable outlook. And you tell that time we're worse off. And today you want us to praise you. We believe that indicators will come out, they will show, but there are other ingredients that must show its indicators to show that actually whether you are on a skeleton or there is some flesh attached to it.
So which other ingredients are these?
1, the city should look good. The city is not looking good. Inflation is declining. Meanwhile, prices of goods and services are escalating. You know, I just made a call because in 2016, a bag of maize, you know, Damango is most of us we venture into farming and a hub of maize. 2016, a bag of maize was 120 Ghana cedis. As we speak today, it's 250. More than doubled. The economic fundamentals are good. Inflation dropping, prices is going high. So how can inflation be dropping and prices double?
So you think there is a mismatch somewhere?
There's a mismatch. Two, economic fundamentals, industries are doing well. Meanwhile, people are being laid off. Yesterday, Akosobo testers, 600 people are gone home. Even the media, they are doing double tracking from the information I've taken in payment of salaries. Most of them are gone home. So, if you want economy to, you say it's on a rat track, we must see
But what happens in the private sector? The incompetences of private sector management cannot be passed on to government. That's not
Government policies are very important. Government promotes the private sector, and the policies of government will go a long way to speed up the public sector.
So when the private sector is failing, it means government is failing. That's what you're suggesting.
If the purchasing power of people are nothing to write home about, and the private sector, how will it function? That is the point. If people don't have the money to patronize your goods as a private person who produces goods and services, how will it? So, yes, the indicator is a skeleton indicator, but in reality, the flesh to attach to it, to make it truly reflect onto the ordinary Ghanaian, it's not working.
It's not. Senor Hossi, you're an economist also.
Well, probably it again comes back to my problem with these two people.
but you would accept that the ratings are a fair reflection of the economic fundamentals or what's happening in our economy?
I think SMP's position is largely fair. It doesn't mean that all is well within the economy. One of the things that I think the government has done pretty well is to actually deal with its main fiscal issues head on somewhat.
When you say head on,
so I tell you, when you take government debt every time, there's a part that's heavily missing. It's kept under the wraps of arrears. So the debt to contractors and all that never really shows up. There's been a lot more willingness on the part of the government, this one, comparatively, to deal with some of its
history compared to NDC.
Some of it.
Richard will be happy to hear.
I mean, that I give them. It's a statement of fact. Ken will sit down with you. I owe you. I agree. Maybe I can't pay all much, but let me renegotiate it. That's fine.
At least
the finance minister, yes. You have said to be a bit different. You know, he'll try to bully his way through. But everybody is different. But at the end of the day, the real picture is showing. One of the major interventions that the government made that probably helped stabilize a few of the key macro indicators that feed into these things is the 9.7 billion CD bond. The 9.7 billion CD bond coming in at the time that it did actually took government out of the short end of the market. That was a master stroke to keep interest rates low.
That was a good policy. I like the word master stroke.
It was a master
Richard
stroke.
should be happy to hear these words coming from you.
It doesn't mean that there are quite a few very challenging things still ongoing. You know, so there have been good set things on their side. Everybody does some good, you know, every time. But
it's their job to do.
It's their job to do, but they also do a lot of bad. I mean, the two of them combine both. So, I mean, that was key, and that has managed to stabilize interest rates. Then you've had monetary policy also trying to control a bit more of the flow. Then you also have, constructive things like the inflation also being under a bit more control. We've taken a long-term position on most of our debt. You take the energy sector debt, so the energy bond, and interestingly, that's a bond that the NDC should have issued. I and my team developed that concept, the ESLAD, the energy bond and all that, to deal with these things properly.
And submitted a proposal whilst the NDC was
It wasn't welcomed at the time but the government dealt with it. But it managed to stabilize that exposure to the banking sector, which was going to pose a major financial risk to the broader economy. All right. But they did the first thing, which was passing the ESLA. So you see, that's one part of it, which was a very difficult decision the NDC took at the time. Those things have helped deal with some of government's hardcore debt situations, giving us a long-term position on it and help us come up with a structure to deal with them over time. The real problems you have today have to do with how we are dealing with not getting back to where we are. So you look at some of the data you have that would justify this, but there are also still policy actions today that threaten our ability to reverse any of the progress. But the progress too here, to be fair, a part of it also has to do with some of the interventions.
But do you get the impression we could have done better? I mean, as a country, all the policy decisions we've made, you see, from the NDC time to the MPP time.
There are fundamental things with the economy that we have to deal with. It's about our deficits. There's been a bit more discipline seen here, but some of it too may be cosmetic, because if I'm not paying you and not declaring it, it may not show fully in the deficit position. We have a revenue problem. We have a revenue problem and a problem with the productivity of our expenditure. The productivity of our expenditure is not that great. When government spends 1 CD or $1, it doesn't yield the right return. And there are a lot of reasons for it. Corruption is the number one bit of it. Inefficient procurement. And also the absence of effective prudence in the allocation of the resource. I'd rather spend money in Damongo to get money out than to spend money on an airport in Ho. Because when I spend money in Damongo to make sure the farming and productivity comes in, I generate income from that productivity and I can later spend on an airport in Ho. But politics controls a lot more of what we do than proper economics.
The decisions we make,
exactly,
and the timing.
Exactly, and that's why we should all read Lee Kuan Yew's Third World to First World and start realizing that we need to start thinking beyond ourselves as political parties. You are not political parties. We are a country. We are expecting that you come up from different ideologies to help move us forward. But all the politicians and the economics that often govern it is more driven by how do I still stay in power, not how do we genuinely advance the long-term prospects of our people.
But if the basis is how do I continue staying in power, it's like meeting the expectations.
No, because we are humans.
Citizenry.
In marketing, there's a latent need, so you anticipate needs and develop products. There can be existing needs, but policy work and managing people, it's a mix of both. You have access to better information. He has better access to better information. They do. I do in some sense. We see things that have to be done, but the person sitting in Ho is just worried about the airport not being there. You understand? And there's a traffic light everywhere, and I don't have a traffic light in my place.
And sees nothing.
So this man is saying that this man cannot understand the fact that I have to spend money in Damongo because that's where the production is, so that we can produce a lot more maize, reduce the cost to the people. And once we have that productivity, maybe get to a point of export and generate export income, increase our current account, control FX that we are, and I'm just using this as an example. All right? As an economist, I would say I would spend that money there. I'd rather build the road to Damongo than to build the road to Ho for an airport. I'm not saying Ho hasn't got product. I'm giving examples, for example. It's easier for me because maybe I come from there, so nobody will say you are being tribalistic. So, I mean, you have that situation. I won't do an airport. But politicians don't think like that. They said, these guys need this. Let's just do something for them. And the same thing, they get into so much pressure. If there was room, they will sacrifice the SPT. They sacrifice the SPT, they have further revenue shortfall. What happens? Bigger deficit. What happens? Lower rating, higher costs on our funds, the yields on our investments down. Then all becomes a bigger problem. So I think there's been some positives, but the sustainability, there's a lot more to it. I mean, the ratings are not just enough, all right? But the dishonesty about the politician is that when it is not his government, he will question the rating. When it is his government, it is. One last note, you remember the Transparency International ratings, right? Yes. You know that when they're in opposition and they give their score, the government of the day
will say it is illegitimate. It is, but I don't know how come after 8 years or 4 years, then their opinions change. You see, so I beg you, it's you too. You did the same thing, please.
Right. So let me get Bobby Banson's view. I'll get you to comment. No, I want Bobby Banson to raise it. Okay. All right. So let's hear you.
I largely agree with the sentiments expressed by Senor on some of the
what about that expressed by Mutawakilo?
I mean, it was laced with a lot of mischief, so I think I'll just throw it to the no, these are not facts. I think largely, and we being humble over the period, the time that we spend in power, we are humbled by these ratings. And we will continue to make ourselves available to.
But the fact is also that previously,
we know that
has
I'll come there.
Has questioned the legitimacy of
we know that there are
rating.
challenges around. But the point is that as a government, we are always ready to do better and make things better for Ghanaians. We understand that as a government, it's our mandate to bring some moment of relief to the ordinary Ghanaians, to put in measures and put in programs that would sort of generate the needed jobs and create a better enabling environment for private sector to thrive. I think that looking at what we've done so far, I think so good. Look at it in various indicators, and it tells you that indeed the prediction by SP or Standard & Poor is something that all of us need to take serious. Number one, what these ratings will do for this country or continue to do for countries that are being rated by Standard & Poor and other rating agencies is that the international community and investor community looks at these ratings to sort of make decisions as to whether they will go to a particular country or a particular area to make an investment. For instance, now we are seeing a lot more companies, car manufacturing companies and other companies, IT firms, wanting to come and set up an assembly plant and a processing plant, and also coming into Ghana to set up, all because they look at some of these indicators and they realize that the managers of the economy are more serious and are bringing in fresher ideas and more showing compelling reasons why they ought to come here and make investment. My brother, over the period, I gave an indication of the interest rates. If you look at what this government has done to make sure that we have an interest rate where it is becoming bearable for the business community, because indeed, during the era of the NDC, the interest rate was hovering around 30% plus. 28, 29, 30% plus. Now we are seeing 17, 16%, and I know Stanchart and other banks have theirs around this figure. It gives you an indication that something better is being done. Look at this government in terms of taxes. Government, as far back 2017 budget was concerned, realized that we did not introduce new taxes during the 2017 budget. What we did was to rather find more ingenious ways of, one, reducing taxes in certain extent, scrapping some of the taxes entirely, and making sure that we rather give some moment of comfort to the business and investor communities. What it did for us in that period was that it helped the growth of the economy, because we told you that we are looking at moving from taxation to production. Now the growth of the economy as far back 2016 was concerned was 3.6. Now we flipped it over. Now during 2017, we saw the economy growing at 6.3. It's an indication that indeed Ghana and the government was putting in and doing something better that was making the economy grow. And these are things that we need to applaud the government for it. Secondly, government is taking decisions and making sure that we pay our debt and arrears. You see, when we came in, there were contractors who were being owed. I know the BDCs will tell you that the huge monies that the government ought to pay the banks so that they can equally make sure that they settle the banks, they pay the BDCs so they can settle the banks. Because of the fact that government over the period had been recalcitrant in terms of making payments in that regard. We make payment to that. As we speak now, government is on track in terms of payment to national health insurance. So the health insurance is
don't start that one.
The government is on track.
I said be careful.
No. Government is doing that. In terms of the deficit, we've been able to manage it better. We've been able to manage it better. And we see that we all know that in terms of throwing monies at problems to resolve in terms of sustaining the strength of the city. Pumping money occasionally, as it's been done over the years, is not sustainable because you cannot continue to do that. The most the best approach that ought to be done is making sure that we industrialize the country, where we will not start importing toothpick, socks, and other things. You see a clear-cut deviation from what we are used to. When our government is focusing on the programs like one district, one factory, getting in investors to come in, and all these things. All these things are things that is happening in some of these ratings that we are hearing. But you know that. Now, there's a better approach in terms of management. When we came in, NDC have already gone to hang us with the World Bank and IMF. We're going for...
It's the best thing that happened to Ghana.
That's the best thing they could do.
Right.
That's the best thing they could do.
Richard, I think
but
we should wrap up.
Now we're seeing that even as a new government, in terms of the natural system that we've gotten ourselves and we are used to, where government goes out there, borrow and all that, now we are seeing a more innovative approach in trying to generate funds to develop our economy. For instance, leveraging on our bauxite reserve to secure funds that will help develop our country. Because the point is that as a country, we know that we have in excess of $100 billion in terms of raw bauxite. When we add value to you, are looking in excess of $400 billion. But NDC, during their era, before the existing power, thought that the best way of developing the country is to sign off 57% of that bauxite reserve to a family member of a president.
Private company.
We said no.
And you believe
we said no. The best approach.
Richard, let me
allow all of you.
No, I think that.
At 35%, me are the pay. You know the pay. You the collect them. You be my taxes.
I'm not paid by government, please. I'm not paid.
You are paid by government.
I'm government spokesperson on infrastructure. I don't take salary. Equally, deputy communication director for MPP. I'm not paid.
The party doesn't pay.
I don't receive salary from anybody. What I understand is no.
We need to switch.
See, what we need to understand is that now we are finding a better approach of dealing with problems that confront the country. I will not sit here and pretend that we'll turn Ghana into heavens. There's more to be done. There's more to be done. We promise and we are delivering. We promise a couple of things and we are delivering. You haven't got into the end of our tenure. We told you that, like I indicated earlier on, free education will come. It's happening. We told you that we will start nursing and teacher training allowance. We've done that.
I don't agree with that.
We told you that we will fight corruption and so on, and also bring in special prosecutor. We've done that, and even gone to their one of the most finest individuals to come and head it.
Let's wrap up.
So, infrastructure-wise, there's a massive work happening across the country. When you go to the railway subsector, you see the kind of work that is happening. The roads within the recent budget, you saw the government dedicated for $500 million towards the development of the country, where projects across the country are being executed. It tells you that government is on. When you go to my own town, Bekum, the Bekum township road, 8.2 kilometers of road, is going to be constructed. This project contract has been awarded in this. No, I'm talking. Of course, you've seen it. Go to Sunya, you are seeing roads. It tells you that go to the Volta region. My in-laws, and they'll tell you the great amount of work happening within the region. Roads have been done. Go up north. Roads have been done. The point is that we haven't done everything.
The Eastern Corridor Road is still a horrible situation.
Your credit is the fiscal discipline.
The Eastern Corridor Road.
No, see, we haven't done. We haven't done everything as far as turning the country and our fortunes around is concerned.
Right.
But the point is that we are also humbled by these ratings that tells you that the good work that has been done by His Excellency the President and the economic management team under the leadership of Dr. Mahmoud Baumia, who is a man that NDC will always want to chastise. But great work has been done.
Let me hear from
and it's beautiful.
Let me hear from Bobby Bassett.
He always maintained a position during both NDC.
I know he's spoken a lot, but I'll give you very little time.
Okay, both NDC and MPP time, that these international ratings,
before you come,
like it said, it be S&P rating we go chop. In my work.
Can you calm down so that we can...
No, I'm saying that in both NDC and MPP time, I have maintained an approach to these international ratings. That is not what will put food on the table of the ordinary Ghanaian. Now, let me tell you why. In my work as a private legal practitioner, I've had the privilege to advise people who want to do business in Ghana. Some large, some medium, some small. And let me be honest with you. None of them has asked me, what is the S&P rating or this rating for your country?
So you think that you think these ratings are cosmetic?
Not necessarily cosmetic. I think the end of these ratings is not what should make politicians happy.
I agree with you.
What these ratings are, the target is not what should make the politicians happy.
What should make us happy? Them happy then?
Whether or not, because they always say that because of these ratings, investors want to come to Ghana. And I'm telling you, this is one of the least considerations when investors want to invest in this country or in any other country for that matter. I think
it's not one of the list.
We don't have a lot of time. I need him to finish up.
I mean, not financial. I mean, I know not financial. I'm talking about if somebody wants to come and do business in Ghana.
He's not going to sit back and...
Yes, but financially it has its own implications. That is why I said when an investor wants to invest. But financially it hasn't. For example, if you are going for credit, it will affect the interest rates and everything that would happen.
The investments we have on our markets, it has implications.
Yes, but that is large. I mean, Ghana is going for a loan and everything, that kind of discussions. But as if an American wants to come and build a factory in Ghana as a private investor, I'm saying that it is one of the least considerations. Let me tell you, they look at the cost of production. Richard, they look at the cost of production.
See, the ratings takes all these things into consideration. They look at cost of production. They look at economic fundamentals.
A point that is critical. At the end of the day, my aunties in my village don't care about the rating. That's one of the problems as an economist I have.
They care about putting food on the table, being able to afford their basic needs.
With the way we evaluate political, the economic performance of our political leaders. These are the things. I'm telling you, one.
We need to take a break.
Before then, we need to change this. We need to change this GDP, all this kind of talk. We have to measure them on 4 things only. 1, employment.
As if you are in my head.
2, inequality. There's data to check. 3, poverty. And then 4, your GNI, not your GDP. Because we need to be able to ascertain for the Ghanaians who vote you in power, what is their wealth? What the wealth generated?
That is what I was coming to.
So let's hear.
My brother indicated a fall in interest rate. And that's why I say skeleton. Everybody believes that a fall in interest rate, businesses should be able to borrow, invest, increase employment and income. A fall in interest rate, companies are laying off workers. What is the translation? People are losing their job. Go to Akosombo test. So that's why I say skeleton. It's not flesh. I know that your president, when he was the candidate, promised 100 days to pay all the bills.
I need to take a break, and when I get back...
A second.
I'm sorry, we need to go. So this is Newday, Saturday edition. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I know we're having a very heated discussions on the ratings and its implications on jobs. But this week, the Ghana Independent Broadcasters Association rose up against what appears to be a second chance given Chinese company StarTimes to expand the infrastructure for digital terrestrial television after failing to do so in 2012. The Chinese firm failed to execute its contract to supply and install the DTT network platform for Ghana after the contract signed in 2012 was cancelled by government in 2015. Apparently, there is a $95 million contract required, which for StarTimes to secure the funding from China's Exim Bank to execute the project. With the money not coming, the government was disappointed. The Ministry of Communication finally cancelled the deal. But government later announced a new deal with the Ghanaian-owned company KNET, who did the work for 13 million less. That's about 82.4 million than the Chinese company was offering. Now, the Nana Akufo-Addo government is looking for a $1.5 billion Chinese facility, which was clinched by Professor John Mahama's government in 2012. John Evans Mills, I beg your pardon. That money never came. But the Nana Akufo-Addo government wants the Chinese money and has been told that a condition for the Exim facility includes engaging the Chinese company StarTimes. So critically, this has raised quite a lot of discussions with the Ghana Independent Broadcaster saying that Ghana is handing over a key national infrastructure to a Chinese company, which could have implications on us. But I want to start with you, Bobby Manson, on that particularly. So I'll leave the NDC and MPP out. And I must say that Senor Hosi has to leave us and go on another program, so he's gone. So Bobby Bansing, this situation is getting a bit murky, right?
I have really studied this matter since it came up. It's a very interesting scenario. But what we all know now from the posturing of the Ministry of Communication is that whether we like it or not, they will proceed with the StarTimes deal. They will
because
proceed.
There is Chinese Exim Bank money they're looking for.
That we have been made aware. Now that brings up the issue of how sovereign we are as a country. You see, the unfortunate part, and that is a problem sometimes I have with MPP communicators, not Richard, not like you as a person.
Yeah.
I've not heard you speak on this matter. You know, there are facts and there's perception. Facts relating to this matter is that StarTimes was awarded a contract by NDC. NDC had the, I don't know if it's appropriate, had the balls to terminate the contract when they realized StarTimes could not perform.
We could say had the guts.
Had the guts, sorry, pardon me. Had the guts, had the guts to terminate the contract. At that time, we were still looking for Chinese money. We've always been looking for Chinese money. But NDC were bold to terminate the contract and award the contract to a Ghanaian company. I have heard...
Which did it 13 million less.
I have heard NDC, MPP people talk, and I have heard it myself on radio and TV, that, KNET belongs to an NDC man. And so what? They have not said that KNET did not perform the contract. Whoever the contract was given to would vote. Or I'm assuming would vote.
In fact, Jojanda said KNET did a brilliant job.
Yes, they have done the work. Now, what I have heard them say is that they are not terminating the contract with KNET. I've heard MPP make that statement, that they are not terminating the contract with KNET. They are bringing StarTimes to do a different aspect of the project. At the end of the day, KNET has not said we cannot do that enhancement. Ghana is going to pay StarTimes, whether through the back door, and the payment is the tax waiver. This is a private man's business, 300 villages project. This is how he chooses to penetrate into the Ghanaian market. And we said that he should not pay tax. There are other indigenous businesses that are competing with StarTimes.
Who are paying
Multi-TV, all of them, they're all paying tax. Now we allow a Chinese to come who would bring Chinese staff, because that is what they do, and you are telling them don't pay tax. My problem is, if the China government says, before I give you money, find some business.
So you think the Ghana Independent Broadcasters Association has a really solid case?
They have a solid case. But at the end of the day, we would all sit here and talk, because the government has decided. What my main concern about this is the decision to waive the tax. If at the end of the day, the Chinese government says, until we need the money, until you give these people some job, we will not give you money. I have no problem. Government would have to find a way, because if it was NDC, they would have done the same thing. You have to find a way of satisfying that condition. But to take a step further and waive tax, it means that they are biting us twice. That is my major concern with this approach.
I'm afraid.
And I think that we should, if not for nothing, get back, readdress that issue of the tax waiver.
Honorable Mutawakilo, we don't have a lot of time.
Yeah, this is just a sale of Ghana. Because every government must intend to promote local entrepreneurs. So if the first one was ordered, they were not able to execute. It ended up in court. They lost within, not that the case was not concrete. That is why Ghana government under the NDC won. And President Mama, up to the Supreme Court. And the president has to take that decision to engage a local company, KNet. And that has done extremely well. I have not heard anywhere where the Minister of Communication doubted the competence of KNet did. So irrespective of anything, you must promote it. It is ours. It's always better than it is for him. No. And when this government came, this starter went to arbitration. The Attorney General is saying we cannot defend it there. It's shocking. That reminds me that even if the ITLOS ruling, if we hadn't moved it to some level, they would have said nolli prosequa.
No.
Let me
we don't use that word.
I want to give
so therefore,
Richard some time.
The decision of government to bring an enhancement because they are expecting money, they to look at the effect when you hand over your communication infrastructure to a foreigner.
It could be dangerous
to manage. It could be very dangerous.
Richard Mensah.
And they are coming to Atiwa, you know.
Richard Mensah.
Richard Santiago.
Richard Santiago.
Yeah, thank you very much. My brother, I think before I descend on that, I just make about 1 minute intervention on the issues of job that my brother indicated earlier on. I think this government has done extremely well when it comes to job creation, as far as this last couple of months that we've been in power. I mean, when you go to the Forestry Commission alone, you know that in excess of 35,000 people have been engaged.
You are not paying them.
When you go to, whatever I say, I know you have something to say about it. When you go to Yate, about 38,000 people have been engaged. When you look at the number of individuals that have been employed by the Planting for Food and Jobs, it's quite enormous. There are other sectors that are also engaging people every now and then. This railway work that is happening, people are being engaged every day. So you can talk about the difficulties that you left
when
us.
the time
as
is
far
up.
as the in terms of the banking sector and the job losses that will come there. Now let's look at the KNet issue. I think we are confusing two issues here. It is a statement of fact that KNet was given a phase one of this job to do, to which they did and made sure that we have about 40 channels in place. Please, I allow you to talk.
KNet did the 40 years.
So what did you say no? But that's exactly what I said. So you're confusing yourself. KNet phase one, they were given that job to do, and they did it. I hope you're getting me to that. And now government is looking at getting the channels to about 100. And equally having 10 regional channels and other infrastructure in addition to that. Now, there are various things that government is considering. And all these things boils down to funding. You're looking at the funding sources. There's a probability that there will be Chinese facility to support this whole enterprise. But you know that most of these facilities, when it comes in, it comes with its own conditions. And those conditions sometimes might include that a country might say, once I'm giving you this facility, then I'll require that the contractor ought to come from my country. Most of these, and Ghana, over the years, we've gone into that. But that the arrangement where StarTime is putting satellite infrastructure in about 300 villages across the country. It's not the same as what we are discussing.
No, but we are giving them tax waiver.
No, I'm saying it is not the same as the DTT arrangement that we are talking about. They are completely different. You might raise issues. No, I'm not talking about you.
Okay.
I'm talking about the conversation that is ongoing. Okay. If you have issues and there are difficulties, as far as the MPP is concerned, we are ready to listen to the views and opinions of everybody. Because that's the way we can develop our country. Right. We believe in participatory democracy, that if you have views, express them. Government listen to people. Let's see how we can make the country better. Right. So at the end of the day, government has not done anything untoward. no contract has been given to any company as far as the government is concerned. The process is ongoing. We are looking at the funding, where we can get the funds. If tomorrow it turns out that my brother would want to provide funding for that, we'll look at it. If KNF can provide the funds for this, we will equally look at it. If Chinese are giving us funds and they say they want start times or one of their companies to, and government look at the conditions and the arrangement and the thing to benefit the country and the number of jobs that it will create for the people of Ghana, I think government will equally look at that. But let's not come to the table with prejudiced minds and think that something untoward has happened.
Right.
Nothing untoward has happened. And government is making sure that we protect the people and also protect the government and whatever it stands for.
Richard Asante, thank you very much. Let me wrap up with you, Bobby Banson. What should be the better way forward with the Star Times deal?
It looks like government will give Star Times some job. Like he said, there's a difference between their private business dealings and the government job.
What should be the better approach?
The better approach would be, if you give us the money, let us open it up for competitive bidding. If the Star Times provide proposal that is better than a Ghanaian or somebody from any other country, let's give it to the Star Times. And that is what I'm saying. Because it looks like we have to take the money. We have no option. Because that is why I was talking about perception. Star Times, I have seen, I don't know whether it's true or not.
Brazil gave us loan to go there.
What did you say? You said soul sourcing. Government of Ghana is doing soul sourcing. President Mama is doing soul sourcing.
I'm afraid we have to wrap up our discussion for this morning. Honorable Mutawa Kilo, thank you very much. Richard Asante, thank you very much, all of you who made time to be with us on Newday Saturday edition. Gentlemen, I'm grateful that you all made time, and this has been Newday Saturday. Thanks very much. Please enjoy the rest of our programs.